All right, thank you guys all for coming. We appreciate your time. And we are going to give you each 3 minutes. I will actually alternate who's going first, to be nice. And, is that all? Okay, well, we'll go ahead and start with Brian Schul. Our first question tonight are you a current member of a local PTA unit? And how have you personally advocated for our students through PTA?
So I am not currently a member of a PTA. So I honestly couldn't answer the second part of that question either.
Okay. Michelle?
I'm not a current member either. They do really good pushing the memberships in elementary schools, and I was always a member, but my kids are in junior high and high school now, and I've even asked them, do you guys have PTA? They're like, I don't know. So I'm not a current member, but I do advocate for the kids constantly. I'm probably one of the most, the board knows me. I've emailed them. I email anytime there's an issue, anytime I see something that's weird, I just contact them and let them know, hey, this could be better. This isn't really good for our kids. But no, I'm not a current member. And I've asked, so I don't really know if they do have PTA in junior high and high school. I
They
thought
do.
so. Okay.
Thank you. Rick Gilmore.
I'm not a PTA member either, but I do support my grandchildren that are in the school system and other candy bars and go to all their events and things like that, you know. I'm not a member.
Kenneth Reeder.
I'm not a member either at the present time. Have been in the past, but not for several years.
Lori.
In my past years, when I was working for the district, I was PTA member at Truman, where I taught my last 16 years. Currently, right now, I am a PTA member in Union Star because that's where my daughter is employed. And so, since I'm retired from teaching, I thought I will help the membership. I'm not very active up there because I'm not living in the community, but figured my membership support there, where my daughter works, was a good investment.
And we did not hear back from Joshua Hall, and he is not here with us this evening, so we will go on to our next question. If elected, when making decisions, who are you most accountable to? Michelle?
Oh, when making decisions, the community and the students we serve. I mean, definitely the students we serve, it's going to impact the families and the students' lives. But then financially, it's going to impact our taxpayers, so they want us to be more conservative and not have big price tags. But yeah, I would say my reason that I'm running is for the students. I do also care about the educators, though. I mean, if we want our students to learn, we need good educators. We need to create nurturing environments. So yeah, the students, the families.
Thank you. Rick Gilmore?
Well, the students would be the primary concern because that's what our education system's here for. So we need to advocate for that, and we listen to recommendations from the different school district executives, what their recommendations are, and it would be up to us to analyze whether we think that's the best thing for our students and our educators, our teachers. So I would be a dual advocate for the students and the teachers. Of course, if it comes to levies and tax increases, we need to incorporate the taxpayers into decisions as well.
Thank you, Ken.
Hey, what was the question?
If elected, when making decisions, who are you most accountable to?
Taxpayers first, because they're everybody. They're the students, they're the parents, they're the teachers. They're all taxpayers. Taxpayers, and then as far as the concerns about the district and working within the district, teachers would be number one, get their pay up. Number two is going to be greatly expand early childhood development.
Lori?
As an elected board member, the decision-making, the accountability comes back to the taxpayers, the voters. The statutes in the state of Missouri changed a few years ago, so you have 2 board members elected every year, and then every third year there are 3. So The accountability, as far as I'm concerned, comes down to the voters. If they're not happy with the way the board is progressing, they have, every year, there's an opportunity to vote someone new. That presents certain challenges as well. You're constantly having the potential for new board members, so takes a little while to get momentum going together as a cohesive unit. But that's where I think the biggest accountability is, that, and then upholding the policies. And I know Mrs. Prusman's worked really hard over the last year and a half, 2 to 2 years. Six, sorry, thank you. I know it's been really focused the last 2, but she's poured her heart and soul into the board policies and making sure they are updated, and so that is another layer of accountability for the board.
Thank you. Brian?
St. Joseph. I mean, as a whole, it really is. The students, the taxpayers, the business leaders, everyone, every vote that happens affects somebody in St. Joe. And I think that's who we're most accountable for, is just the city as a whole.
Thank you. As you all know, there are currently many bills being proposed regarding vouchers and charter schools. What are your thoughts on vouchers and charter schools, Rick?
Well, as a board member of a public school system, I'd be 100% against charter schools or vouchers. That's all that's going to do is reduce the amount of money that go to the public schools. And as far as I'm concerned, presently we've got a lot of private schools in St. Joe. If people want to pay to have their children go to the private schools, that's fine for them to do that. There's certain things that those private schools offer that we don't. But I would be dead set against using public funds for charter schools and vouchers.
Thank you. Ken?
Well, I think it's something that's going to happen. So only Kansas City and St. Louis have it right now, but it looks like it's going to make its way through their legislature this time and possibly next time. So that's even more of an importance for us to raise our priorities and get our ship in order, because if we have a strong system, a strong school district here, there'll be a lot less likely that we have to worry about a charter school as being perceived as perception. If we provide the same services to every student throughout the district at grade school and middle school and high school level, then the charter schools, unless they're more along the line like the Hilliards, if it's going to be technical school related, which brings us more funding, fine. But I don't think, from the stuff I've looked at, charter schools have been all successful. I think it's about a 50-50. Some places they've been okay, and some places they haven't. But so I'm not sure if they've proven themselves yet. I think it's going to be something that's going to be coming, but I don't think it's something that we need to be fearful of. If we're doing what the St. Joe School District has always done for many years, continue to do that, it may not be such a big issue. Other than the fact we brought up last time, there's so many less students going to be here in 10 years. I mean, who would really build a charter school here?
Thank you. Lori?
Well, my take is slightly different, I think. Public education is under attack in this country and in this state. And I have very strong feelings about that. Charter schools, vouchers, pull money out of the public education system and pull it away. I do agree with Ken, we've got to make our system as strong as possible, because if we don't, it'll be very easy for a charter school to come in and set up shop in St. Joe. And if we do, it's going to be even scarier, I'm afraid. The other problem with charter schools is kind of holds back to your last question as far as accountability. Charter schools don't have to be elected by voters of the community. You could have sitting board members from California, from Texas, from any other state say, I want to put a charter school in St. Joseph, Missouri, and they do not have to be accountable to the voters. And so it's scary. So if you have not contacted your state legislators, please do that and tell them, no, we don't want that here.
Thank you, Brian.
I would have to agree with pretty much everybody so far as I would not be for charter schools taking away tax dollars and taking away resources from our public schools where we have good quality teachers and we have a great system going on right now. I don't see the reasoning as to why I would want to support that.
Thank you.
Again, they're part of the problem, not the solution. Yes, I signed the petition. Yes, I've been advocating against them. We don't really need the charter schools. I do worry, though, with our academics in a slump, that our accreditation might fail, and then that's where a lot of the places get charter schools. So I think we need to really work on getting our academics up and focusing on the schools that we have. Pulling away any more money from our district is just going to hurt us. And I really think when the federal cuts and everything happened, that's where we just really started to have to go into crunch time. And we made a lot of cuts, and now we've just been in survival mode. So I'm hoping we can get back to a point where we can thrive without charter schools.
Thank you. Looking to the future, what do you see as the top 3 areas that need to be addressed to ensure further success for the school district and the community? Ken?
The 3 areas?
Correct.
Five-year plan to increase the compensation package for teachers. 2-year plan to double the resources and funding into early childhood development. Those 2 legs of the 3-legged stool are all about academics down the road. We're getting a big bang for our buck on those 2 things down the road. We'll continue to see the benefit of that. So I think also the other thing, those are my 3 things, really, the 2 get us to, we need to concentrate totally on academics. I'm not so much into shiny new buildings right now as a solution to any of our problems, especially with this big decline in students we're going to have, which the $280,000 study with DLR just completed said we're going to have. So that's, the thing about, too, when people do stand up and vocally come against a plan, whatever it may be, from the board that comes out saying, well, we're going to do this, this, and this, and we're going to raise the taxes, and that's when you just can't have the board bringing that type of demands forward. So.
Thank you, Lori.
Top 3 areas, number 1 for me is student-teacher ratio. And the board, I commend in agreeing to hire additional staff for the K-2 numbers for next year, and the intensive kindergarten classrooms. I think that's phenomenal. My next level of focus would want to be middle school. I guess part of that's because I lived and breathed it for so many years. But they are crowded, they are struggling, and we need to get back to where can reduce those numbers at the middle school levels. Number 2 for me would be teacher support and making sure that the teachers and all faculty, but that the teachers have the boots on the ground, the front lines have what they need to survive. Would love to see us try to work out something more with the college. It concerns me if you have a college student teaching at Oak Grove and they're hired for Edison, that's a culture shock. And that we can potentially be setting up those teachers for failure. So number 2 for me is making sure that we've got supports for the teachers that the teachers need to be successful in doing their jobs, whatever level that happens to be, whether it's paraprofessionals, whether it's some sort of instructional coaching back for teachers. We need to give them the support that they need. And I do agree we need to expand and work on the early childhood. Those were difficult cuts. The Parents as Teachers program were difficult cuts to have to take place, and we need to begin to try to figure out how to bring that back in, and to borrow Mrs. Prusman's word the other night, is making sure that we can sustain it, which is absolutely nail on the head. You know, it's great, we need to bring these back, but we've got to be able to sustain it too.
Thank you. Brian? Brian?
My top three would be student behavior, the classroom sizes, and then teacher recruitment and retention. Touching each one of those a little bit, the student behavior issue, the board, again, that's been pointed out, the board has made great strides with the new hires that they're planning on doing that. I think that's going to help exponentially. With classroom sizes, it's not an unknown thing that our classroom sizes are exceeding numbers across the entire district. And so I think that's something that definitely needs to be addressed, because the smaller the class sizes, the more the teacher can be engaged with each individual student in ultimate success. And then the last one is the teacher recruitment and retention. We've heard a lot about teacher pay raise. I'd love to give raises to all the teachers, but I think another thing that a lot of people don't see is that there's a definite lack of morale that is in the school district right now. Teachers don't feel like they have the support that they need from higher ups. And in turn, because the teachers don't feel like they have the support, then you have students that don't feel like they have the support from the teachers. So we really need to tackle those issues. And I think the district's making great strides, but if you look at it, they're all centralized about success for the student itself, whether it be the class sizes, their behavior, giving them the tools that they are able to handle and cope with these issues that they may be having, whether it be home life, disabilities, any of that. We need to give both them the tools and resources, and give the teachers the tools and resources to be able to help these kids get through their times.
Thank you. Michelle?
I feel like I'm going to preach to the choir here. So my experience when I decided to do this is we need to work on our communication. We've got to start bridging the communications between the schools and the parents, between the teachers and the administration. I have teachers saying they really like what I'm doing, they really support me, but they're afraid to speak up about it because they might get in trouble. That's not a dynamic that we should have. We shouldn't have teachers afraid to advocate for students or afraid to advocate because their classrooms it's just too many kids. It's again, not a secret. So I think first and foremost, again, we've got to tackle that overcrowding. That overcrowding contributes to the poor behaviors and the academics, which is our other two problems. But really bridging those communications between our community, our parents, our teachers, everyone. I would love to form an actual parent-community alliance again. PTA is awesome. You guys are like our only alliance that we have right now, so I appreciate each and every one of you.
Thank you, Rick.
Well, I would like to make preschool for all 3 to 5-year-olds available for every child in our school district. I know that's an expensive thing, but that's something I'd like to strive for. And I think we need to do the best we can do to increase the salaries for all the teachers, but we have to be able to afford to do all those increases. I think at the very least, we also need to supply all the materials the teachers need for their classrooms, where they don't have to go out and buy their own stuff. Reduce the classrooms. I'm not necessarily sure that every classroom has to be 20 kids. I think it's a discipline problem is what it is more than that. And I think I'm glad to see the school board has hired some behavioral interventionists to help the teachers with that. And they've also set up some interventionist programs for kindergarten and 1 through 6 at schools too. So, I think that's the best things we can do. We've got to do what we can afford to do, but at the very least, we need to keep our teachers' salaries as well as we can afford and pay for the supplies that they need. And I think preschool is really the key to success in education. I think the parents need to know that they should read to their children when they're little. And I don't know if everybody knows that, just simple things like that, it would be great if we could get the parents involved with their children in their education.
Thank you. There has been much discussion regarding the number of high schools, open enrollment at the high schools, and changing boundaries. What are your thoughts, Lori?
that's more than one issue there. I do believe, firmly believe, the health of the school system, the health of the community are intertwined. I believe we need new high schools. As a board member, I am open. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm absolutely only going to go this way. I think there's value in two new high schools. I could get behind one new high school and rehabbing, say, Central. I could get behind a campus. I do not like one big gigantic school, okay? If we're looking at that, I do like the idea of a campus model where you can have a ninth grade center in its own building, 10 through 12 in its building, and then have connections and walkways. Out of all of that, the one piece that I really think we need to do is figure out a way to expand Hilliard's. I would love to see Hilliard's become a 4-year high school opportunity. If we can do that in some fashion, your school choice, open enrollment, whatever you want to call it, it becomes automatic. You can't, if you're going to have that open plus the others, the kids who attend Hilliard's in that setting would have to choose to go there. So there is your open enrollment possibility. As an 8th grade teacher, year after year after year, I saw an untold number of kids. You know they're not college bound, and we would tour, every year we would tour Hilliard's, and I would always say, you know, what'd you think of this program? Did you like this program? We need to build that up. With all the restaurants in town, I'm amazed we don't have a culinary arts option out at Hilliard's. We need diesel mechanics out at Hilliard's. So that's what I would like to see. Whatever plan we put in place for a high school, I would love to see that included, or an expansion of Hilliard's included in that.
Thank you, Brian.
I'm so sorry. Could you repeat it? Because I know there were several parts to that question.
There has been much discussion regarding the number of high schools, open enrollment at the high schools, and changing boundaries. What are your thoughts on those things?
Ever since I've been here for the last 10 years, open enrollment has been an interesting, I guess, beast is a way to look at it. I've never seen or heard of it anywhere else. So trying to get behind that, it would just get behind that idea. I would need a little bit more research and education into it. I came from a district where I had one middle school and one high school, a much smaller community. So I would have to definitely look into that. In regards to the high school model, I'm for a 2-school model with repurposing of the 3 existing high schools, because again, it goes back to our overcrowding issue. I think that's something that we definitely need to look at. I know a lot of talk has been, okay, if we go from 3 to 2, sports, that's always been one that's been talked about. And I think one thing that a lot of people don't understand is currently in our high school system, and this is again what I've been told, so that if I'm wrong, I do wish to be stand corrected, that we have, each sport has a JV and a varsity team. If we go to the 2-school model, then we can create the existence of a C team, which is essentially a freshman team. And what that does is we have 3 high schools that have 2 teams each, so that's 6 teams. We go to 2 high schools, we still have 3 teams. So, and one thing is about particularly the community that we're in, we have a lot of students that sports are their outlet that keeps them active and something to be proud of. And I think we have to, that's one thing, as much as several people don't want to talk about the sports, we have to keep that in the back of our mind, because that is, whether you have sports that's an outlet, you have fine arts that you've got to be able to keep all these different outlets so that students can be the best version of themselves. So I think that's something we'd have to be look at for that. And thanks.
Thank you. Michelle?
Okay, I have a totally different outlook. So, our open enrollment, we are the only state, or the only city in the state that does that. I don't know if I've heard of anyone just having open enrollment. What I would have liked to see done is that we actually track the transfer request and collect the data and find out who's going where and why. Because I think what came out of all that conversation is there were a lot of students that were choosing the smaller settings. For my family in particular, my daughter had a really bad bout of anxiety. So Central was really triggering her, and she was a lot more successful at the smaller setting in Benton. In order to track the transfers, though, we do need registration online. And then people would have to submit the transfer request. Now, they would be approved based on space available. The parents would have to provide transportation, and the student would have to agree to have good behaviors as best as they can, grades, and attendance. So that would promote good student behavior. And as well, working with the parents, building up that rapport that we need to have good communication and stuff like that. Our boundaries are really old and outdated and strange. My daughter was getting registered for kindergarten when I first came across them because we lived across the street from Coleman at Brittany Village, and we weren't allowed to go to that school, but that's where I went because that's the sign that I saw that said Kindergarten Roundup, and that was really an odd feeling that I had that day. It was the first time that I ever really kind of felt judged for our circumstances. We did end up loving Noy's family, but that was a weird dynamic that the boundaries, I mean, district-wide, I know you asked about high school, but district-wide, our boundaries are strange. We've closed schools, we never changed the boundaries, we just absorbed more students into those schools. I think we should change them, but in the process of the change, I think we should expand some transfer requests and really track the numbers at our schools.
Thank you. Rick?
Well, I think we should take a hard look at the studies we've done and what their recommendations are on the number of schools we should have. And I know their recommendation was 2 high schools, and I've seen us compared to Liberty, and they have a 2 high school system. So I think that would be something that we could do. Like Lori said, you know, I would like a campus-style new high school. And you could have a building that's fine arts and a building that's STEM subjects, and maybe another building that's literature, and then have a freshman building, and they would have all the studies in freshman classes, and they could all be interconnected with walkways. And it wouldn't seem like such a large school then. I originally was for the 1 school system, but I don't know, you know, I'm convinced that, like everyone says, the sports teams, you need to have that outlet for the young people. And I would even add esports to that, because I think there's a lot of students that might like school more if they could compete on it with esports. And also, you know, I was in the sheet metal business. I had business for 33 years and was in construction for 50. And we bought a building from Gray Manufacturing, and we re-outfitted it with our own equipment and classrooms, and we trained our own people through our apprenticeship program there. And I think if we could increase the capacity, either with increasing Hilliard's or even using one of the school buildings that's like Traister here, they have other buildings still, you know, under their wing. You could increase the amount of student population for that, and recognize the fact that everyone doesn't want to go to college, and everyone's not able to go to college. And you can get a job earning just as much money if you're trained and you have skills. So, you know, I don't know if I've answered your question or not. You know, I kind of, it has changed what everybody's statements, you know. I don't know if we're talking about boundaries, or we're talking about schools, or we're talking about what we can do to help our students. But I think a new high school would be good for our community as a whole. I think St. Joe and Northwest Missouri, the per capita income's a lot lower than what it is in the bigger cities. And I think if we want to attract new industry here, we need to improve our educational system and become the best school system in the state.
Thank you. Ken?
Okay. The boundaries are, I've sat through a lot of these meetings as well, and what it comes down to, they blame it on the sports activity. There are people front-loading different teams in part of towns, but the one part of town or another. But that's only about half. My understanding there's about 300 people that are involved in this transfer program or something roughly. and about half of them may be in fact over a sports situation, but the other half of them are logistics. We're in a time where you have families you've got kindergartners and you have 20-year-olds. You have split families and different families, and sometimes they go to that school because it's just logistically best for them to be there. So we shouldn't punish those people that logistically go and transfer among the schools, because we're all modern families nowadays. We have different people pick people up. I'm a grandparent to pick up my kid every day and look forward to it. So that's why the boundaries that go along with that, if they're gonna, we've had open boundaries. And at that board meeting I was at, they brought up, well, we're the only one in the state, and there's 528 school boards in the state. And we're the only one that does that. Well, when you look just a little bit deeper, guess what? There's only 67 of those 528 districts that have more than one high school. So, it's trying to we're the only one that doesn't have it. Well, that's true to a certain degree, but there's only 67 districts that applies to. So, and it got nixed this time around, but they're going to start, because they weren't going to run the bond this time, so they were just, didn't care how mad they made everybody of everything. So that's why they decided to float all of these things now, take away the open boundaries. And then at the last board meeting, you see that they tabled the fact because they were going to exempt. I went to Lafayette. It's the poorest zip code in northwest Missouri. But they were going to take all the folks out there in Greystone, and all of Greystone is in Lafayette's district. But they were going to make a special exception and cut Greystone out and let them go to Central, which I understand those parents out there are not concerned. Why would you want to send them over there with the poor people, like all the rest of us over there? But that's where they already backed up on their thing. And right now, they're throwing everything out there because they don't have a bond issue on the table. So they think by next year, this time, we'll all forgot about all these things they're doing, taking away the open enrollment and things that, so.
Thank you. Back to Brian. The role of the Board of Education is to hire, fire the superintendent, set policy, and to approve budget. Do board members, the board in general, do you feel have a role in the day-to-day operation of the district? Or should they?
I would say no. I mean, that's the reason we hire the superintendent. I mean, that is our one employee. Do I think we need to be involved? I think kept in the loop was a better situation, because I think one of the hard things that we came across several years ago with the huge issue that came in is that the board wasn't informed at the time. So actually making decisions day to day, like getting a phone call every time a new decision has to be made, I would say no. I mean, that's why we hire the superintendent. That's why we put our trust in one person, is so that they can actually deal with the day-to-day operations. Our job is solely to be the checks and balances with it.
Thank you. Michelle?
I agree with Brian. As far as the day-to-day, we were supposed to hire the superintendent, who then hires the other people, and they will deal with the day-to-day. But I do think we need to be in the know and be aware and keep that bridge of communication open in case somebody does feel like the board should be informed of something, that they feel comfortable that they can approach us without us busting out their anonymity or anything, that it's just something that we should be aware of, and they let us know somehow.
Thank you. Rick?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think the board members should be involved with day-to-day. I don't think people would know who to turn to if some board members disagreed with their principal at the school, or I think that that should be a private conversation with the management. But if a parent or a teacher had a personal problem that they felt needed addressed and they weren't getting the attention, then I would feel that they should be open, or I would be open to them calling me and saying, well, I've got a problem here, can you help me with it? I think that's what the board members should evaluate hires and then rely on those people to make the day-to-day decisions.
Thank you. Ken?
What was this question?
It was the role of the Board of Education is to hire, fire the superintendent, set policy, and approve a budget. Do you feel that the board should have a role in the day-to-day operations of the district?
No.
Thank you. Lori?
No, not in the day-to-day. I do believe in the chain of command, though, and the board is the final say. So if you have a grievance and you have followed the chain of command, there is a pathway for it to eventually come to the board. But I very much believe in, before it comes to the board, the question is, what did this person say? What did the principal say? What did the director say? What did the superintendent say? And you've got to work this, you've got to work that system up the chain.
Thank you. Michelle, how would you handle the request if approached by an individual or special interest groups?
What request? I'm just one vote. Like a special interest group approaching me to sign on for something, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. Again, the reason I'm doing this is because I actually care about our city and I have kids involved, so no special interest groups.
Thank you, Rick.
Could you give me an example of what you're calling a special interest group?
For instance, big business agendas or another group that has their own agenda. If they're coming to you with that, how would you handle that?
Well, I would listen to them. I would listen to them, and I would let the board know that these people approached me, that I would not favor anybody over another. I think it would have to be a board decision on what direction to go with anything.
Thank you, Ken.
So could you restate the question?
The question as typed out, if elected, how would you handle the request if approached by an individual or special interest groups?
I would suggest that they talk off the record and deliver unmarked bills. Just like they've done for the last 20 years in this town.
He's a comedian.
Oh, so much accuracy. Lori? Lori?
Like Rick, I think you need to listen. You never know when an idea is going to come to you that you go, well, I had never thought of it this way or never looked at something that way. Outside of the committee of, or I should say a quorum of 4 or more, you're one individual and you're one voter, and have no power or authority until you are sitting with that board. So I think we need to listen. We are, if elected, we are elected by the community, and that includes big business, or that includes, kindergarten teachers, that includes preschool, that includes whatever you want to call as a special interest. I think it's worthy of listening. You can't promise anything. That's irresponsible. So.
Thank you, Brian.
I would have to agree with Rick and Lori as well. I think listening is probably the best route. I mean, I think that's one thing that the community has lost faith in the district, is because they feel like they're not being heard. So I mean, absolutely, I would listen, and just, let them be heard, because sometimes I think Lori hit the nail right on the head. Like my first response, St. Joseph is made up of so many different groups. I mean, big business, special interest groups, students, teachers, all that. We have to be able to listen, because without listening, we don't get to see possible outcomes.
Thank you. We will start with Rick this time. If elected, what strengths do you feel you'll bring to the board, and weaknesses?
Well, what interested me in running for the board to begin with was they announced they were considering building 2 new high schools, and they were going to spend, I think the paper said $200 million, and I went, what? Because I'm a taxpayer, and I didn't believe that it could cost that much money to do that. And I would bring to the table 50 years of experience in management and construction and negotiating expenses, and I would bring critical thinking, and I'm sure everybody else would too, but I've got a lot of experience, up to 70 employees, and I had a day-to-day thing of people coming in, they, this guy said this to me, and what are you gonna do about it type thing, you know? Or, you know, you have a customer that wants you to come speak with them and talk to them about how to design a new product line. But I think I would bring management skills and critical thinking and I have personnel experiences. And my weakness is sometimes I got a short fuse, but not very often. It takes a lot. It takes it takes somebody really being rude to me to upset me.
Thank you,
I'm not a
Ken.
PC person. I say what I think.
Thank you, Ken.
Well, I think, yeah, over the last 10 years I've been involved in this, or more actually, that I am not going to go along to get along. When it comes critical, and my first responsibility is to the taxpayers, that's ultimately who I have to develop the trust with, so they do invest in the future of this town and do not mind releasing their tax dollars to a system or something that's going to work properly, work to their advantage. So just being able to stand against the wind, especially in this environment, is a critical thing. I mean, I do not mind being the 1-6 vote, 1-6 vote, 1-6 vote. I do not believe in this, where they have to have a unanimous vote on anything, which they always do, which is actually ridiculous. But it's just that it's such a big thing as a board member to try to get your hands around that really there's no way anybody has the ability to do that. I mean, we're the largest budget in Northwest Missouri taxing entity at about $150 million. We're the third largest employer in 15 counties in Northwest Missouri. That's after Heartland and after the pig plant, St. Joe School District. That's what makes us so critical to everything. And so as far as weaknesses, we do not have enough time tonight for me to go into those, okay?
Thank you. Lori?
Well, let me start, I'll start with the weakness part. I would say one of my weaknesses, I have to be careful not to favor middle school because that's where I lived for so many years. I have a soft spot in my heart for our middle school kids and our middle school programs. So I have to be careful to make sure that we are looking at all grade levels. And I will promise to do that, but I will always look out at that, for that grade level. Strengths, I think one of the strengths that I can bring is, well, two things. One, as a retiree now, I have the time. This is a time-consuming and a thankless job. I know it's a thankless job. Again, I taught middle school. So I have the time I can commit. Also, 21 of my 28 years teaching has been in this school system. So I have lived it, I've lived the trenches. I know what it's like to try to have cooperative groups when I've got a group of kids sitting out in the hallway because I don't have good community areas where we can do that. So I think that is a definite strength that I would bring to the board. I bring some insight that a lot of other people wouldn't necessarily have right now.
Thank you, Brian.
So in regards to strength, I think one of my biggest strengths is that because I wasn't raised here, I have no stakes in the district. I don't have any kids that go through the school, so there's not going to be really a favoritism. I just look at the district as a whole, because the whole reason I got on the bandwagon of running is because I want to help make the district a place that I'll be one day proud to send my kids to and never even think about possibly, ooh, Mid-Buck looks really good right now, or, ooh, how far can I go into country club so that I can send my kids to Savannah? I want to be proud of the district that I put work into. I think that also falls on as a weakness as well, because I am from out of town. I'm not born and raised St. Joe, so I think that would be a huge weakness of mine. what I can bring to the board is I tend to think outside the box. I served for 2 years on the Board of Governors at Missouri Western, speaking on behalf of the students, and there was a lot of times, because that board is compiled of business leaders in the community because they're nominated and elected by the governor of the state of Missouri. And so that is an interest group. But I was one that would go with those business leaders and make them think outside the box and remind them that, again, it's about the students. The Board of Governors for Missouri Western needs to think about the students and the future of the university. So I think that would be my best thing. Is this my weakness is I'm not from here, but I also view it as a strength as well.
Thank you. Michelle?
All right, so I do have a big family. So time was definitely an issue when I first thought about running, but I talked to my family and they are all so well equipped and willing to help. So we've made time. They're all willing to pitch in. I had my oldest cook dinner tonight. She did really well. We just collaborate as a team. So I guess that's one thing else I can do is I'm pretty good about putting a good team together and trusting that our communication's been done well enough that they can carry out those duties. I do that at Missouri Western quite often in order to coordinate what services are going to be a best fit for our students with disabilities there and how to make the classroom materials accessible for all those kids. It takes an entire team and it takes follow-up. We have to work with the faculty, the IMC, video guys. Everyone has to come together to make sure things are accessible. So I guess that would be a strength. Another weakness, I'll just go ahead and throw out too. I don't know all the ins and outs yet as far as the day-to-day administration, stuff like that. I don't know all that, but I'm willing to ask the questions and listen to people to learn, and I love to research. So I have my own integrity, and I like to find my own answers too.
Thank you. I think a lot of you touched on this on the last question, but do you have sufficient time, energy to devote to this position? And I believe we are, and Ken?
I do understand that total, you're absolutely right, that the time commitment is unbelievable. To even put your hand all around how big this thing is, we're talking about the St. Joe School District, so the time commitment is very important. I've ran my own business now for 14 years. I'm basically, in about 6 days, will officially be retired. As far as Medicare and all those things are concerned, so I'm quite aware of the time commitment, but I think I might be the only one here at the table, other than Lori maybe, but over the last years, I've spent a lot of time at the school board meetings already. So just in the audience to be part of it, to hear what's really going on. So yeah, the time commitment is brutal, and I think that's one of our weaknesses about the board, is that you have these professional people on there now that, my gosh, some of the people have huge commitments in their lives, but they're just sitting trying to put their handle around this as well. And it's a thankless, non-paying job, so. I guess have yourself mentally checked before you put your name on the ballot.
Thank you, Lori.
Simply yes and yes. I was able to retire at age 53 2 years ago, so I don't need Medicare yet. I'll be nice when I get there because my health insurance is high, but that's a different story. I don't have children at home now. My children are grown. One's in college. One is counselor at Union Star. I don't have another job that I have to devote to, so yes, I have the time to do this. The biggest interference will be twin granddaughters if we get them here. So I'm looking forward to that phase, but I'm happy to work that in around what we'd have to do with the job. So, yeah.
Thank you, Brian.
I would say yes. I've been blessed to have employers that work around my busy schedule. I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce, so there's several meetings that I have to go to throughout the day as well. So over the last several years, I have been blessed that they work around my schedule and they know what's important. And because I work with people that have children in the district, they see that this is important. So yeah, time would not be a problem.
Thank you, Michelle.
Similar, I also work for the college, so they do promote our community service efforts, and this is a very important thing. We get graduates from St. Joe School District, and we want them to be ready for college, so my boss actually was like, you have to. So, when I approached her about putting my name on the ballot, and my family, has been super supportive. All my family lives around here, so it's not just me and my husband, it's me, my husband, my parents, my sisters, we all just kind of rally around each other. So if I can't be there, somebody's going to be there. And my kids are older, and they do really good taking care of each other. We've taught them personal responsibilities and household responsibilities, so that's very helpful.
Thank you, Rick.
I'm retired, so I've got a lot of time. I've got 8 grandchildren, and that takes some time, and I've got a wife, and that takes some time. But, you know, I keep the books for Joetown Mini Golf and Joetown Speedway, and I've got a property downtown that's got 12 apartments and a venue on the ground floor for entertainment, and I have somebody that manages that for me. So all I've got to do is pay bills and sign my checks and read the paper right now and take care of the grandkids when I'm asked to. So I think I've got time, and I think I got the energy too. I think I can keep up with any schedule they want to give me, you know. So yes and yes.
Thank you. Final question, what qualities, behaviors should board members exhibit? Lori?
Number one for me is professionalism. I mean, we may be elected by the community, but we're professionals. And as a board, we need to work as a professional board. We're not always going to agree, and that's okay, but we need to be able to agree to disagree. Doesn't mean it has to get nasty and raucous. We can disagree and be okay with that if we don't. But I expect everybody to be professional and courteous.
Thank you, Brian.
I would have to agree with Lori. Professionalism, support, and respect. With that, we're high faces in the school district, so we need to conduct ourselves in a professional manner in any aspect that we do. In support, yes, there's going to be disagreements. It's not always going to be 7-0. But at the end of the day, I think as a combined unit, we need to be able to support the ultimate decision of what comes from the board. You know, if I'm the one of the 3 against the 4 yays, but I didn't agree with at the end of the day, I need to support what the board has decided, and not go to social media, all these aspects, and just be a support, because at the end of the day, all it's going to show a crumbling board and not a combined unit. And then transparency that's a huge issue we've had with the district, is people complain that they aren't being told what they need to be told. So I'd want to be as transparent, and the board position has to be as transparent as they legally can, because I know there's several things that the board is not allowed to legally say. But that would be as open, because that's going to help build the trust back in the district.
Thank you, Michelle.
Our mission is to educate each child for success. So I think we definitely have to unite on that aspect, even when we don't get along, to realize we're all still supposed to be working on the same mission. So we have to agree to disagree, definitely, in a professional manner. But we do need to exhibit good listening skills, and we have to validate our people that we serve. When they come upset to us about hurt feelings and things, trauma that have happened at our district, because it does happen, we need to validate those feelings and listen to them, and definitely keep the transparency where there's just the whole bus route thing was just wow. With the open enrollment, the stuff that came out with I think we're going to see more of that as we move forward, that people are going to come out with more things that have been done in the dark that need to come to the light so we can deal with them. Not that anyone's at fault, but I I think social media is actually a useful tool for communication. Yes, negative things get said. People have hurt feelings and sometimes they lash out. We are gonna have to accept that. It is a job with no pay, unless you are counting the tons of scrutiny that we're going to get for our decisions made. But we have to be able to listen to even the people that are upset with us and the choices we make.
Thank you, Rick.
Well, I think we should provide leadership in the community. We should always be respectful in public and present a good image. We should be professional as a group on our decisions, and we should strive and make it known to the public that our most important mission is to improve the education for our children in St. Joseph, Missouri.
Thank you, Ken.
Definitely the decorum of the meetings, the decorum of the work sessions and everything needs to be done. It needs to be on a professional level, without doubt. Proper procedures, proper process, and the decorum should be professional at all times. But that's as far as it goes. Outside the boardroom, it doesn't matter what I do or any of these people do personally. That's always been the problem in the past. You get on the school board and all of a sudden you can walk on water. Or you take a whole different attitude out there in the public's eye. For some reason, we raise our school board members to this holier than thou situation. And decorum, proper procedure, politeness, professional attitude during the meetings and everything that's involved that. But you cannot dictate, nor do you want to dictate the board's personal behavior out there in life. Because a lot of times, that may not agree with the way you feel about things. When you're inside the boardroom, yes, you follow that decorum, professional attitude, but it does not become, you do not become this benign thing and somebody important and have to go along to get along. You have to stand especially on what's correct to do. And your personal life really should have nothing to do with it.
Thank you. I thank you all for your time tonight as an organization that's built on volunteers that give so much of our time. We truly do appreciate what you're doing, and we hope that you guys are all out for the best interest of our children. And if any of you would like to have a membership, please feel free to come forth and we will get in contact. That's one thing that we really need to build on is communication and linking together. And
How
we
much
thank
is
you
the
all.
membership?
Each school differs, but I am
Oh,
going
each school is different.
yeah, I'm going to call our
Oh,
meeting
20 bucks
adjourned
though,
at
I think.
8:24.